Welcome to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Transact Card, Align Life, Neuro Infinity, Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 525 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Dan Murphy. If you want to hear how we discuss the Nobel Prize of 2021 and how it includes chiropractic, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Today it's Dan Murphy. I saw this guy speak at Cal Jam back in 2018, rocked my socks, was like, this guy's the real deal. And it's been a really long journey for us to finally get him to say yes to being on this episode today. So before we jump into telling his story and talking about some of the significance with the 2021 Nobel Prize and what that means for the relevance of in the chiropractic profession. We're going to talk about how safe is chiropractic adjusting. And we're also going to talk about why spinal adjusting is important alternative to drugs and management of spinal pain syndromes. But before we jump into these topics and telling Dr. Dan Murphy's story, I want to let everybody know the big why. Why do we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle? Well, First Amendment's really important to us. Freedom of speech. We've never censored anyone on this platform. And I think that says a lot about what we're doing over here to protect the relevancy of the truth behind this profession. There's a lot that goes into it. We also believe that there should be medical freedom across the board for every individual and family health freedom, that the family gets to decide how they raise their kids and what goes into their body and what doesn't go into their body. Thoughts, chemicals, food, whatever it might be. We just want to have the family have freedom to make those decisions. Talking more chiropractic. We also protect the sacred trust. And that's BJ Palmer's last words. If you want to learn more about chiropractic, go to your favorite search engine right now, pause this interview, and go and listen and find out what BJ Palmer's last words were and what his sacred trust was, and then learn how to guard that. And that's what we do with this show as well. And then as we go on to the introduction, the last in the middle here, as we talk about, we do support subluxation-based chiropractic. I know that's something that's been under fire in the vernacular of this beautiful profession. We just want to make sure that we support that. And then the last thing is innate intelligence and universal intelligence. We believe that when man or woman, the physical gets adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual. And that might sound woo-woo to people, but that's really the baseline of chiropractic. And then we get scientific stuff. But that's the philosophy. And with all that, Dr. Dan Murphy, welcome to Chiro Hustle.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. In fashion of all of our episodes, I think one of the most significant things we can do is share your story about how you became a chiropractor and how you got into this beautiful world of chiropractic.
So when you mentioned your tribe, have you read the book Tribe by Sebastian Junger? Have you read that book?
I have not.
You guys should. Your whole audience should. It's killer good. It is one of the most important books in world history. Came out in 2016. Read it. It's a quick, easy read. Put it down, read it again, and then put it down for a month and read it a third time. It's really kind of exactly what you're doing. It kind of puts you, where are you? Where is your tribe? What do you think? And then, as you're shooting the breeze with me before this thing started, you say, yeah, like you're like good scientific based guy. The fact of it is, I'm actually a really good chiropractor. So I'm a chiropractor. This is year 45 for me. I've been on the job now for 45 years. I've had, no kidding, 70 associate doctors. And I'm a little bit different now. I'm a little bit, in fact, hurt in that I am no longer the big dog in my own office. My wife, Michelle, who you've talked to, she sees most of the patients now. She is really on fire. Miracles all the time. She worked all day yesterday, then she took the red eye and flew to New York. So she's in New York right now. I just hung up from her, and she's telling me about the bodies that she did just yesterday. And she kept telling me about these two that have Parkinson's disease and that are just doing just unbelievable. And these kids she's doing that have unbelievably difficult medical diagnoses that have been given up for no benefit in how well they're doing. And it's like, you could tell even after a long day, and we worked on Sunday, we worked in Vegas and then drove up to Northern California. It's an 8-hour drive. And she's like exhausted. She drove the whole way. And yet she's patient, and you can tell she's just still so fired up about the things that are going on here in our office. And when I was 17, my father came up to me and he goes, there's something wrong with your mother. And I go, Dad, we know. Mom has been coughing nonstop. Mom, by the way, was age 44 at the time. I was 17, a junior in high school. His mom's been coughing nonstop for a year. And he goes, yeah, but what you kids don't know, there's 5 of us. I'm 2 of 5. Your mom is now coughing up blood. And he goes, there's only one person working in this family of 7. And he goes, it's me. And your big brother's already back east. He's at Notre Dame. And mom's got to go to the doctor, and she can't do it on her own. And I can't do it. So it falls to you because you got a driver's license. So I took my mom, long story short, mom is diagnosed with bronchiogenic carcinoma. My mom is diagnosed with lung cancer. She never smoked. She never hung with smokers. She's 44 years old. And I was there also when she got the report of findings. And basically the guy says, you will not see your 45th birthday. The guy just flat out said, we will do radiation. We will do chemo. We'll take at least a lobe, maybe an entire lung, depending on what we see when we get in there. And my mom says, if I do all that, I will live. They go, no, you still won't see your 45th. And she very politely declined medical care. And of course, I'm thinking, oh, hell, this is crazy. Decline medical care? It's crazy. And so I figured my dad's a California politician. He's a type A. He's a super athlete. He's super smart. He's super personality. He's really funny. And he's 265 pounds. He's a big man. And I said, I'll just tell Dad, and he'll just make Mom do whatever the doctor figure out really quick. Mom ran the family, not Dad. But Dad came up shortly thereafter. He goes, your mom wants to go see voodoo doctors and stuff. And I go, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, I could fight with her, but she's sick and she's dying. I could fight with her and force her. But he goes, what good would that do? I've decided I'm going to let her do whatever she wants to do, but she cannot do it on her own. It's too much. She needs a companion, and it's got to be you because you can drive. And I go, can I get out of school? He goes, yes. And I said, count on me. I am your guy. I'm all over. I'm in Winthrop, Washington, Grapevine, Texas, Estes Park, Colorado, New York, Tijuana, Mexico. But the one spot with my mom, and she's looking at all of these alternative providers. She ended up kind of with 2. One is a person that did the work of Otto Warburg. Remember, Warburg got the Nobel Prize in 1931. He should have got 3 Nobel Prizes, but he only got 1. And it's on cancer. And she kind of went that direction. But what really met my career, so this is really changing my career, because long story short, Mom lives 26 years with cancer. She lives with cancer, saw all the grandkids born. She diagnosed at 44, dies of cancer, same tumor at age 70. What got me the most, though, is she's seeing an osteopath in Belen, New Mexico. And I'm there. And I'm watching this guy kind of work on my mom from a structural perspective and all this stuff. And so I'm a junior in high school. I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do with my life? I go, I can't play NBA forever. I mean, one day I'm going to get, my career will be done in the National Basketball Association, which is what I thought I was going to do at 17. Of course, that never happened. So I said to this guy, well, what's an osteopath? So he explains it to me. And then he goes, are you kind of maybe interested, maybe being an osteopath? I go, yeah, I kind of am. I like what you're doing. I see what and I'm kind of into this. And he goes, well, if that interests you, you do not want to be an osteopath, because today an osteopath is more primarily like a medical doctor. Their emphasis is pharmacology and surgery. If you like the relationship between structure, function, and health, you want to be a chiropractor. 5 years later, I'm in full-time clinical practice as a chiropractor. That's my chiropractic story. And we just never look back. I mean, I'm just a regular guy, just like you, just like any chiropractor out there in the trenches. It's just that I have had an interest. How can people live 26 years with cancer after telling the doctor, no, I'm not going to do what you want to do? All the cool things that we see clinically. I listened to Michelle yesterday, taking her down to the airport. She had a 10:45 flight to Buffalo, New York, connecting in Charlotte. And I keep thinking, well, how do you explain any of those things that she is seeing clinically? How is that explainable? And so my interest, besides being a chiropractor, is figuring out what the heck is going on physiologically. So I'm trying to figure it out physiologically. And you talk about innate and universal intelligence. To me, there are people that are like us. They are evolutionary biologists. If you read evolutionary biology, that's an actual PhD. You get a PhD in evolutionary biology. If you read it, it sounds exactly like chiropractic philosophy. There's even one guy over the top. There's a guy named Nick Lane. He's an evolutionary biochemist. His book came out last year, 2022. It's called Transformer. You read this, you start thinking, these guys sound exactly like chiropractic, like what is consistent and what is inconsistent with evolutionary biology and evolutionary biochemistry. And that stuff really thrills me. I read almost everything I read with an eye of an innate chiropractor who has an understanding of evolutionary biology. I don't know if you've ever seen like this book here. This is a book came out 2 years ago. It's called The Hunter-Gatherer's Guide to the 21st Century. Heather Haying and Brett Weinstein. These guys are PhDs. These husband, wife. They are PhDs in evolutionary biology. When I read a book, any book, I make my own index, and I have this section on the chiropractic subluxation every time. They don't know it, but they are describing it flawlessly. And of course, I get to take that, weave it in, and then of course I use it at my college class, Life Chiropractic College West, and where I've been now. It's a part-time gig. It's a 1 day a week gig. It's my Mondays. It's pretty much our charity work. But I'm so committed to the college, and I'm really, really happy with the product that comes out. I just did class this weekend, like I said, in Vegas. And there's some Life West graduates recent that are in the room, and I just could not be happier with the quality that's coming out of there. And I know that I'm part of it. I'm not, the only part, but I'm a part of it. Even though what's really cool about that is that my actual job is I'm not supposed to teach them anything new. I have them just before they graduate. What I'm supposed to do is take everything they've learned from all their other instructors and put it in and make sense out of it. How would we, use this stuff? How would we use it in communication? How would we use it in a report if we had to testify, which I have to do later today? How would I testify? And that I'm talking to lay people, I'm talking to jurors and make them understand, what am I doing? What am I thinking? In trying to relate to them and just kind of, communicate with them and all. What I did is that I require all this really cool stuff. This is some of the homework that I just got from my current class. I mean, just all of these really cool interactive drawings. Here's one on nociception, on pain, which is a big deal. Hey, did you read yesterday's USA Today? Yesterday's USA Today has an article that says the number one chronic problem in America at this moment in history is pain. And if you look at the Adams study, came out in Spine, top tier orthopedic journal in the world in December 2017, Adams says that 93% of the people that initially choose to go to chiropractors do so because of spine pain problems. And yet spine pain is the number one complaint in America today. That was in yesterday's USA Today. So doing this stuff on nociception, but then we see things on neuroimmunology. So we do the nociception thing because we have to, but then we have these darling drawings on neuroimmunology, and every line on the page would have references. These are the studies that say this, and I get opportunity to go through all those studies. And that's kind of, my class is probably sort of what you saw me do, at least in part. The way Billy D is down at college. I mean, you get like an hour and you're just supposed to go, and try to get out whatever you can get out in that short amount of time. My warm-up, just the warm-up with my class is, in fact, 1 hour. And then we go to work. But what I do is just take everything I've seen in the last week, because I read so much stuff. I go, all of this stuff has a direct bearing. Remember when Simone Biles, the great gymnast, had to pull out of an event because she got what the lay press called the twisties. The twisties. She's having some sort of vertigo thing. So what do we do that day? Vertigo. Here's what caused it. This is where vertigo. This is the way we influence it as chiropractors. There's 4 ways that we would do it. We have to vet all 4. One of those is probably the culprit, because it can be because of a bad jaw or a bad upper neck or a bad cerebral. I mean, it could be a lot of different things. We're just sort of vetting it through, so that because they're going to see people with vertigo or the twisties throughout their career. So I want them to kind of vet through how we would think it out. Even though they've had that in other classes, my job is to take the stuff they might have had in maybe 3 or 4 different classes and bring it all together to a single thing, and then I force them to draw it, because as soon as you draw it, it engages the cerebellar relays, and that's the key to chiropractic image, the cerebellar relays. And the cerebellum is the big dog. If you read Kendall and Schwartz, they say 80% of the neurons of the body are in the cerebellum. If you read Norman Doidge's 2015 book, he says 80. He says that's controls everything is the cerebellum, the cerebellar relays, and that's the blessing of chiropractic. Just all the cool things that we can do to influence the cerebellum. Oh, by the way, you said I'm supposed to talk about the Nobel Prize, but kind of what got me onto the Nobel Prize thing is when you look at it, there's this book that's by a guy named Sam Quinones, and it's called The Least of Us, and it kind of explains the craziness that you see in every town, including my town. And you're thinking, what's going on? And he goes over, it's really cool, a guy that you wouldn't think has anything to do with chiropractic, but it does. He says, people can live without vision, they're blind. People can live without sound, they're deaf. But he says what people cannot live without is touch. Touch is great. So what I do is I start running down, I go through his references. He's got a book called Touch, came out in 2015. I go through 2015, then I get to know that there's this guy from UC San Francisco. Well, boom, then last 2021, that guy gets the Nobel Prize in medicine physiology. Where I tell people, hey, chiropractic got the Nobel Prize. What got the Nobel Prize is the way we live and move in a gravity environment. Alignment and movement, that's what got the Nobel Prize. And that's what chiropractors always go, how are you moving? And it's to discount the importance of mechanical care is crazy. And that you start to realize that when a joint is locked up, you cannot exercise it better. It doesn't work that way. The individual joints are not under the control of the voluntary motor cortex. Everything moves except for the one that's stuck. But a chiropractor can, I find it, use a bone as a lever, reintroduce motion, remodel the glues, break up glues, remodel the tissues, and get a proprioceptive input that goes to the cerebellar loops of life. And the fact that this is getting the Nobel Prize in 2021, this is stunning. I mean, it is like the best thing that ever happened to chiropractic. Yet I find that almost no chiropractors know about it. No chiropractors, almost hardly any chiropractors know that mechanoreceptors were given the Nobel Prize in 2021. So I've been collecting some of the articles on it. Man, they're really cool and fascinating. Anyway, I should, you're being so polite, just letting me kind of rattle off.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Transact Card, Align Life, Neuro Infinity, Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. Let's hustle. Well, the things that you're saying to our audience today resonate with me, because I really believe that the more that we learn, the more effective we can be at sharing this message. That's why I'm relentless on catching more episodes and interviewing more people, because I believe it's kind of like in chemistry, titration. If we use a message of chiropractic over and over and over and over and over and over, eventually we might penetrate the market with it. And when we have enough stories that have a positive spin on chiropractic that are from the practitioners that are out there, like you said early on, in the trenches, and we actually tell this chiropractic story continuously, maybe we can titrate the message of the modern community to understand that chiropractic is the answer they've been looking for all along, and that the mechanoreceptors that people have on their body, the biomechanics that they shift with, the vital lung capacity that they have inside of them, their influence on their thoughts, and if we can clear them with chiropractic care, then we can have an influence on all aspects of their development, from cradle to grave, from first breath to last breath, from womb to tomb, however we want to put it out there. But it's a product and a service that is good for everyone. People just don't know that they need it yet. Just like chiropractors are unaware of this 2021 Nobel Prize and how it has a correlation with chiropractic.
Yeah, you say that, really eloquently. And I think that you and I are coming from kind of the same spot, is that you just never give up. I mean, like I said, this is my 45th year on the job. And it seems like every day I'm more excited than the day before. Plus, I'm smarter. I know more. I'm a better integrator. I'm more intuitive. And I think that's reflected in our practice. Our practice is not a marketing type of practice. Our practice is strictly on education. We do not have an internet presence. You can't find us by Googling us and looking for a chiropractor in Auburn, California. Instead, we are based completely on referral. We're as busy as can be. And the fact that I'll take just anything. For example, Michelle right now has these 2 patients with Parkinson's disease. The last issue of Parkinson's disease talks about a chemical called trichloroethylene. So I have one of the patients, just shooting the breeze. They're doing so good. It's scary. I mean, it's absolutely scary. And so I quickly just grab a piece of paper. This is just from yesterday. I said, can I keep that? I'll give it to you next visit. And I just draw out trichloroethylene. I just draw out the chemistry. I talk about what it is. I talk about the products that have it. I talk about how it influences the nervous system. And I talk about what we will do, because not only do we need to correct what is there, we have to inform people as to the avoidance of the continuing causes that screwed them up to begin with. Once you understand that trichloroethylene, and that is in everything, of course, it's in dry clean, dry clean as a solvent. So it takes grease out of your shirt or whatever. But it's bad for the basal ganglion loops of your brain. And so just kind of doing this, and we type it's weird. Michelle gets this one patient with Parkinson's, boom, that one refers her another one with Parkinson's. They're both doing kicking good. But we're just kind of talking about innate intelligence, about, exposing your body to trichloroethylene is against innate intelligence, and it will jack up your neuroendocrine system 100% of the time. Now that you've done it, what are we going to do? And so that's what we do as clinicians. So we kind of advise people, we talk to people, we educate people, and then we intervene. And like I say, it's like every day you feel just so good and just you're kind of jazzed up, because at the end of the day, you've helped so many people. It's really, it's really a privilege to be able to serve people like that.
Well, it even goes back to chiropractic philosophy again. I like to reroute it. Is the body needs nothing extra in it, simply needs no interference. So when you start to find out where these interferences are from a chemical component, then you can start the reductionary model. You can start reducing this out of somebody's lifestyle. And now you can start to see that the stimuli doesn't affect the person to have a de-evolution. They're actually evolving forward rather than, sickness and disease and infirmary. They're actually improving now, which seems like a miracle breakthrough. But when you remove something from somebody that causes the allergen, or you remove something from somebody that causes the hyperactivity, or it causes somebody to feel pain, and you remove it, now the body is a self-healing organism, as chiropractors have always been saying. The body needs nothing extra in it, simply needs no interference. So that takes me to this next question: is how safe is chiropractic adjusting?
There are studies that are coming out looking only at that question that are so shocking. It's unbelievable. For example, this year, 2023, a study comes out in the journal Scientific Reports. That's a big deal. It's the 5th most referenced journal in the world. It is owned by Nature Publishing. Nature is the #1 medical journal in the world. They don't call it #1, they call it impact factor. The #1 impact factor journal in the world, the journal Nature, Scientific Reports, is #5, meaning it is a top tier, a huge, big top tier. They just did a study, 2023. They looked at just under 1 million chiropractic adjustments delivered by 38 different chiropractors at 30 different clinics, just about 55,000 separate people. The outcomes is unbelievable. They came up with 39 adverse events out of 1 million. Get this now, 28 out of 39, the patient got a little bit sore after the adjustment, which means it's common. I mean, if you look at the William H. Kirkcaldy-Willis study from the Canadian family physician back in March of 1985, they took 283 chronic disabled treatment failed low back pain patients. They gave them to chiropractors fixed 81%. Everyone had failed. Drugs failed, physical therapy failed, acupuncture failed. Everything had failed. They give them to chiropractor fixes 81%, and they just flat out said most patients got a little bit of soreness after, but in the long run, no one was made worse, and we fixed 81%. When you look at 1 million person study and you get 39 people and 28 of them just got a little bit sore, big deal. There were no strokes. There were no cauda equina syndromes. There was nothing that was long-term disabling. The worst two things, 2 elderly women suffered osteoporotic rib fractures, and they already knew they were osteoporotic. And I broke ribs myself. I mean, you almost just blow on them and a rib will break. I mean, sometimes they just break the ribs breathing, but there was only 2 of those. Those were the 2 worst things, were some rib fractures. And we just get increasingly cautious not doing this. That shows you that chiropractic is about the safest healthcare intervention out there. In fact, the prior year, 2022, not as good as Journal, but a bigger study, just about 3 million adjustments and just about 300,000 patients. Again, no strokes, no cauda equina syndromes, nothing long-term, a bunch of soreness and some rib stuff. Other than that, chiropractic is safer than anything you can do out there. I mean, just as an analogy, chiropractors often get people to come in on non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. There was a study that came out of Stanford by a guy named M. Michael Wolf. He looked at what is the death rate from gastrointestinal bleeding from taking non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, published in the top tier U.S. medical journal, the New England Journal of Medicine. Are you aware that non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, they say, kill 16,500 Americans per year? Chiropractic kills none. That means, just give us one. Just give us one for a number. It would take us 16,000 years to do the damage that non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs do. 16,000 years. And that was just looking from deaths associated with gastrointestinal bleeding. They know that these same drugs give you heart attacks, they give you strokes, they give you erectile dysfunction, they give you low T, they give you deep vein thrombosis, they increase your risk of Alzheimer's by 66%. That was in the journal Neurology back in April of 2009. You start thinking, oh my gosh, people that they add these drugs that they advertise nonstop on TV. And yet, if you look at the Giles study, top tier orthopedic journal, it's so incredible. They do a randomized clinical trial. There are very few of them out there on chiropractic, where take these guys got the same neck and back problems. You guys get drugs, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. You guys get chiropractic adjusting, and that's it. Just chiropractic adjusting is both neck and back pain patients. Chiropractic was better than 5 times more effective than the drugs. Chiropractic didn't even have a single adverse event, yet the drug group had more adverse events than were benefited. At the 1-year follow-up, the only group that had benefit, long-term stable therapeutic benefit at the year follow-up, were those that were randomly assigned to chiropractic, while the drug group fell right back off to original clinical status. This is why every practice guideline out there is now advocating for what we do, and they're dialing back all of this pharmacological based stuff. But pharmacology is patentable. What we do is not, and that's why these guys make so much money. If you read that book, Sickening by John Abramson, he says that the drug companies have so much green that they give every politician $450,000 a year, and he says they pretty much control the government. They give them, they get. I mean, you just look. You know, you can get Congress to pass legislation that people have to take their product, yet all of those Congress people are accepting their money as part of their reelection campaign. You start thinking, God, that seems a little bit weird to me, that people don't see through that as much as I think your typical chiropractor. Typical chiropractor doesn't look at the world like most people. They look at what's thinking, hey, what about this? You know, is there a money reason for this? I mean, do these drugs actually help? or are they actually harmful? Is there a way that is better? If you just look at the studies on the reduction of the use of opioids under chiropractic care, there's a study of 62,000 people that came out of Yale a couple of years ago. Kelsey Cochran, you look at that study, chiropractic on average reduces opioid use by 50%. I mean, we see opioids are killing off lists for a round number, 100,000 Americans per year. If you drop that in half by getting people under chiropractic care instead of pharmacology, you're thinking, oh my gosh, there are so much good things that we can do. And I think that the future is exceptionally promising in all of this, because every day more stuff comes out supporting our perspective and the way that healthcare should probably really go. And so our patients think we're weird, but we accept that. That's okay. If we're too weird for them, they disappear. It's okay. We get better people. Just never give up.
What you're saying here, Dr. Dan, is there's, based on the patient studies you're sharing with me and the lack of injury associated with chiropractic care, it just tells me that the people that do come in, it's back to philosophical roots. I was looking this up. It's principle number 24. And chiropractic states that innate healing ability within us is limited by the matter and what it has to work with. And when somebody comes in and they're advanced osteoarthritis, or they're advanced osteoporosis, or they're got some type of disc bulge, or they have some type of a herniation. Yeah, of course, if you get adjusted and you haven't taken care of yourself in 40 plus years, and somebody puts a force into that segment of your spine and uses that, like you said, as a lever to correct that vertebral subluxation, if somebody does that, yeah, it could cause a little discomfort. It's been out of alignment for how many decades? How long has somebody gone without having any type of maintenance to the joint mobility of their spine, for their posture, for their proprioception, for their balance, for their hip mobility, for their joint mobility? How long has somebody gone on like that? And then they're going to come in and say, yeah, that hurt a little bit. Well, of course it will.
Yeah. And like you said, you're looking at the 33 principles of chiropractic. If you look at them carefully, subluxation is only mentioned once. 12 times it's innate intelligence, like you just did in number 24 there. And innate intelligence, if you read a lot, it is evolutionary biology. Mm-hmm. That we are evolutionary biologists. I identify with evolutionary biologists. And why does the subluxation exist? If you've ever read that book from 2019, it's called An Elegant Defense by a guy named Matt Richtel. He flawlessly describes the orthopedics of the subluxation complex. He doesn't understand the neurophysiological consequences of it, but other people do. And that's part of what got the Nobel Prize in 2021, is understanding the neurophysiological implications of having that subluxation. And so just, like you say, why are people sick? It's usually because they've fallen out of innate balance, and we help them with that and coach them with that as we are fixing their subluxation and trying to improve the way that they live, exist, function in gravity, and all of the neurology that's downstream, the cerebellothalamal cortical. If you see any of those things, and I don't know if you've interviewed Heidi Horvick yet from New Zealand, but she's top tier neurophysiologist who happens to be a chiropractor. And she is adamant that the primary beneficiary of the chiropractic adjustment is, in fact, the brain. It's the prefrontal cortex. And that's who you are. I mean, who are you and who am I? We are our prefrontal cortex. Mm-hmm. And that's what gives us our values, our drives, our personalities, our goals. Everything is the prefrontal cortex. The fact that Heidi is showing that is being affected drastically as a consequence of chiropractic adjustment, that's a really good thing. A lot of things that to keep the science of chiropractic just keeps evolving. The book I'm reading now, it's called We Are Electric, brand new book. Man, it's got some great chiropractic in that. Here it is. Oh, We Are Electric. I mean, I'm looking at that and go, whoa, there's some really good chiropractic, because if you're not writing gravity, that you put stress in the tensegrity matrix, which has an electrical signature to it, and that also changes everything, including the expression of the genome. A lot of really good things. The science of chiropractic keeps moving forward, and it's kind of fun to be on the front end of all of this stuff. My only regret is that I won't be able to do this for another 100 years, but or even another 45 years, but it's been a great 45 years so far. And we're more excited about it than ever, and smarter, more intuitive, and better chiropractors, I think, every day. So,
Well, it's been a brilliant conversation with you today about all things that I love and all things that our audience loves. And the chiropractic profession is something that is really special. That's why we are tirelessly around the clock supporting and promoting this beautiful profession. And a lot of the things that you shared with us are on a higher level of communication than what I'm capable of doing. So I'm thankful for your 45 years of expertise and your knowledge of skill set of being an educator, being a practitioner, and being a researcher. I think that there's a lot of value that you provided to our listeners today with recommendations for books to read, with understanding some of the limitations of matter that people have, some of the studies involved with it. And, as I think more chiropractic standards, the people that are taking a pharmacological approach to it are not understanding the fact that the body can heal itself naturally. We don't have a lack of a drug in our body problem. We have a lack of connection, like you said, with the brain to the spinal cord, to the animation of the body and the life force that's from that. So if we can reconnect that, we don't need more of something that's built in a lab. We need less of that, actually. We need more human connection and more touch. So that has a profound impact on the way that people hear and the way that they see and the visions that they have. And maybe it will have an influence on the future and the visions that we share together for the future of chiropractic.
Well said. I'm proud of you. You're doing really good work. You're doing really good service for the world. Thanks for doing what you do.
Yeah, and your episode 525 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Just want to thank you so much for being on our show today. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to leave our audience with today?
I can, like I say, my warm up for the college is just it's the first hour. I do article reviews. If anybody ever wants, you sign up through my webpage, which is danmurphydc.com. But I'm doing article reviews now for 23 years. And it's just like the best things that I see that I think directly influence chiropractic thinking and practice every week. I put them up there, and like the ones on safety. I see those. I'm thinking, man, all chiropractors should know this stuff, or the comparison between us and drugs. Really anything like that. I just, if anybody's so inclined, sign up, and it's a really nice service. Other than that, nothing.
So I thank you so much. It's danmurphydc.com. Go over there and pay your dues, guys. Go and read the stuff that he's doing his articles on and share it. Like, that's the greatest gift you could give to the chiropractic future, is take good content and share it. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your colleagues. Post it every week. Post it every day. It doesn't matter. There's probably enough stuff out there. You can post it for 365 straight days. So go out there, find the best of the best, and share that stuff. danmurphydc.com. Thanks for being our guest today.
You're welcome.
All right.
Bye,
see you soon. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.